want to introduce our next speaker. Van Clothier is a graduate from the University of California, San Diego in physics in 1982. He founded Stream Dynamics in 2002. Van's expertise is in fluvial geomorphology, riparian restoration, and stormwater management. He's led many successful projects in New Mexico, Arizona, Sonora, and Chihuahua. He completed the Rosgan River Restoration and Natural Channel Design courses in 2007 and co-authored with Bill Zedike, Let the Water Do the Work, Inducing Meander, an evolving method for restoring incised channels in 2009. He also received his water harvesting certification from the Watershed Management Group in 2011. So welcome, Van.
My gosh, it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much. I didn't realize this was such a prestigious conference. So a few years ago, I wrote a paper with my colleague, La Doctora Ana Cordova from Mexico, and she's not here because she's on sabbatical in Australia, believe it or not. So I'm going to give this presentation. It was initially published in Spanish, and I haven't had it back translated into English. I'll tell you what it says. So it's about what should we do now? What are appropriate treatments for transforming what we have? And everybody has an image of the pre-colonial grassland, you know, grass belly high to a horse and all that stuff. It's a place that exists in my mind. And many of us want to restore this scenario, but what even is restoration? It's a word you can enunciate. You can use it grammatically correctly in a sentence, but the activity done under this name often is not that. And if you can imagine in the pre-colonial grassland, a light rain, a medium rain, what does it do? Well, if you watch, the grass blades don't get wet because they're fuzzy, and the hairs keep the water droplets off the leaf, and they slide and run on down to the hollow part, and the grass is irrigating itself very cleverly with the tiny rain. All that water just goes to the plant, and it grows, and it does a lot to reduce soil temperature and evaporation of that water. But that's not what we have anymore, because what we have, I'm calling it the modern range. We have vegetation type conversion to shrubland. There's precious little perennial grass. Huge changes to the drainage network. It's a different world out there. You know, you can jump on a plane and fly from Albuquerque and all the way to LA. You're looking down at the modern range. And this is what you're looking down at. This is a highway culvert that was set perhaps a bit too low. Perhaps there was already a gully there. This is galloping gullies. And every time there's a hard rain on the modern range, the gullies get longer, deeper, and more branches, okay? And also there's a change to the microtopography that doesn't make it on a USGS topo map. Is the microtopography now is crenulated. So not only has land use increased the surface runoff, but it's increased the drainage density at a micro level. And all these cow trails and rills flow to places like that and then flow to the river. And then there's all of our roads, our thousands, tens of thousands of miles of roads. And each one is a tributary that carries water and dumps it off invariably into the very worst place in the landscape. And when there's a hard rain, it takes it all the way down to the arroyo and dumps a huge amount of water into the arroyo, blows out the arroyo, and desiccates the grassland on the downslope side of the road. And water doesn't flow uphill very good if your drainage ditch goes uphill. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. This is a weird situation that I learned from my mentor, Bill Zedike, who helped me get started in my business. The deal is, that's a valley transect, and the blue arrow is the historic valley bottom. Mother Nature almost always puts her watercourses in the valley bottom. And if you see a situation in which it's not in the valley bottom, that was caused by a road, a trail, an old wagon road. There's 10,000 miles of this in New Mexico, 10,000 miles in Arizona, 10,000 miles in Sonora, 10,000 miles in Chihuahua. This gully was started by a road. So a rancher friend of mine told me, golly, I sure hope it would rain so there will be some weeds for my cows to eat. And I took this picture from his back porch. Pretty good rain. And weeds did grow eventually. But after the rain, the surface of the ground dried out. There was no place for the water to really go. There can be surface ponding and evaporation. The surface can get moistened, but then out comes the sun, it bakes it, all that's gone. So here's the situation we had before all these anthropogenic incisions were caused. And then somebody pressed a button. And this is what happened regionally, okay, over a vast area. And this is what we've got now. We've lost the groundwater recharge capability that the Mexicans so cleverly demonstrated and are restoring. And people say, okay, well, we're going to do something about this. We're going to build some water catchments, some dirt tanks. Might seem like a pretty good idea. In New Mexico, welcome to New Mexico, by the way, where we spread our chilies and our water out in the sun to dry. In the dry lands, where precipitation is less than potential evapotranspiration, don't be misled. When you see a body of water, you're looking at a hole in the system, and water leaks by going up. This is very, very important. Reservoirs that have ponded water in the sun lose water for people in the environment. They make the problem worse. But people who don't understand the math, the physics, the hydrology are out there exacerbating the problem today. It's about science. It's about what is. It's not about what you think is. You know, it's about what is. I was with a friend flying from Silver City up to the Valles Caldera to do air photos of a project. And we were going to land at Los Alamos Airport, but it was shut down. Kind of weird. So we went to Taos, which is a great place. And the next morning we flew back over the fire, and I found out why Los Alamos Airport had been shut down. And there was a big stand replacement fire in the watershed, almost took out Los Alamos National Lab. And then there was a ginormous post-fire flood. Horror of horrors. But if you have a healthy watershed, it doesn't do any harm. It really does not. The harm is done by human beings in a hurry, in a panic. After the fire, the danger is, what are the humans going to do to this poor watershed? So, but not every stream bank is healthy. In fact, precious few are. Almost all the land from here all the way to Mexico, all over a vast area, the drylands, the desert Southwest. There is cattle grazing, which produces very little economic value and a huge, huge amount of watershed destruction, more than most people probably realize. So, what happens if there's a flood when you don't have stable vegetation? We better get the bulldozers now. Let's get all the rednecks out on bulldozers and fix it. I better hurry up. Okay. Look at what we've lost. Look at that. But it's making itself a new repair in the hole. The watershed's unraveling, surface runoff gets into channelized flow. We hope for a good year. But what are we going to do? Bill Zedike says, we can't fix the creeks till we fix the roads. And so he took an ancient Forest Service technology, he's transferring it to the greater Southwest. I hired his other apprentice, Steve Carson, to come down and teach our Forest Service, county, and BLM operators how to do this very important thing. Keep the water in its originating subwatershed, get it off the road. I'm going to go through this quickly, but here's the deal. Water was going down this road into a horrible gully, and now it's irrigating the grass. This is in the caldera. Water was going down the road towards the creek. Now it's irrigating a stand of trees. Valere, all your one rock dams. I had the Aldo Leopold High School YCC building me a one rock dam at Ancheta Creek that had cut to bedrock. This is 2009. The afternoon, they built this one rock dam. It's this high. But like y'all, we built hundreds of them. And this is what the result was. After a decade, we turned a dry gulch into a permanent seep. This is in the Chihuahuan Desert. This is a 2-year-old one rock dam. This is in the Malpai Borderlands area where I first met Valère. And we have a Media Luna. And then it grew some grass, but that was discovered and exploited by the cattle. And we're not really getting anywhere. A prime rule of restoration is thou shalt address the root cause of degradation. If you do not do this, there's another conference they hold in Santa Fe. This is about restoration. Here's a 1-cow dam. Okay? I was able to co-author a book with Bill Zedike about facilitating a natural process through meandering to fix it back in the hull. And by cleverly pointing barbs, upstream barbs, this is on AT's Burro Cienega Ranch in 05, 06, 07. 10 years later, we put the wiggle back, the vegetation grew. This is restoration. There's another upstream pointing barb or post vein. Look at that horribly eroding bank. What's happening? What's happening? That bank isn't eroding. In fact, the stream is eroding the opposite bank now. And if you do it at the proper spatial frequency, you put the wiggle back, the system then fixes itself. You can do this with willows. Here's an old road in the Valles Caldera. How do I know it's an old road? It's not in the valley bottom. So we did channel manipulation, took something like that and made something like that, created wetland. I think Bill Zedike noticed this opportunity from an air photo. So, to restore the pre-colonial grassland, we know what we need to do. We know what needs to be done. We know what the science is. It's a political challenge. The science is basically trivial. We got this. If we get a chance to do it, we're going to do it. And with La Paz and the booming population, the human population is going up exponentially. You're building gabion baskets at a linear rate. The graphs are going to cross. We're not going to fix this as a species on a planet unless we deal with the human population.
Thank you. Vin, we do have time for a question. I think if anybody is interested, okay.
I'm Juan from Jacobs. What is the distribution in your studies of the pre-colonial grassland? Because I have heard different historical studies that claim that everything was a grassland or that only other pockets were a grassland.
I probably have studied this less than you have. I wish I had a better answer. I just read a fantastic book called Empire of the Summer Moon about the Comanche, excuse me. And so what happened after the 1680 Pueblo Indian Revolt is that the Spaniards were sent back to El Paso, but they left their horses, which started 200 years of Native American warriors on horses, the most powerful military on the planet, that commanded 1/4 of the present-day United States of America. And it was being maintained as a grassland. It kept the Texas cow herders out until the United States completed its Civil War and sent a bunch of PTSD people to go and decimate the Indians and the bison and the beaver and bring cattle.
Alrighty. Thank you so much.